So Joe Kennedy III is attempting to primary progressive Senator Ed Markey in Massachusetts. Now, Joe Kennedy has appointed a cop as a top advisor. And it's not just any cop. So let me read just a short paragraph here from The Nation that did a piece on this. So Tompkins, referring to, let me get the full name here, Steve Tompkins. Tompkins did get elected and then fined by the State Ethics Commission for using coercive tactics. In 2013, he flashed his badge, thus exerting his authority as a police officer to dissuade local businesses from publicly supporting his opponent. The fact that Tompkins is not just a cop, but one with a documented record of exploiting his power makes him a strange choice for a senior advisor for racial and economic inequality and criminal justice reform. The Kennedy campaign announced his appointment on June 3rd, just as the movement for Black Lives swept the country in the wake of George Floyd's murder. Now, I've covered this upcoming primary race in the past. They had a debate, I think, about a month ago. I'll link to that above when I cut this segment out from the live stream. But check that out so you can see the back and forth that Kennedy and Ed Markey had. But there is a clear choice between these two candidates. And just recently, in 2018, I believe, Kennedy voted for the Protect and Serve Act, also known as the Blue Lives Matter Act. So the ACLU and 27 other civil rights organizations fought this act. So let me, if I can find the exact quote here. Here we go. The Blue Lives Matter bill. So as the ACLU, along with 27 other civil rights and government accountability organizations, noted in their condemnation, the legislation perpetuates a false narrative that police are under increasing attack by their communities, but, quote, does not call for support services, better training, improved safety measures, increased supervision, or any of the other multiple measures available to law enforcement that are widely accepted as promoting officer safety and well-being. Instead, it increases already harsh penalties for causing harm to cops, including up to 10 years in prison for, quote, serious bodily injury and potential life imprisonment for killing or threatening to kill a police officer, leaving interpretation of those subjective terms up to the courts. And when we're talking about something like threatening, how many times now have we seen how inaccurate police reports are? How often police lie to protect themselves? So say they arrest someone they don't like, they can say, oh, this guy threatened me. Now that guy's facing up to 10 years in prison. And this is what Joe Kennedy backed. The idea that he's trying to primary Ed Markey, one of the few progressives. Now, Markey doesn't have a perfect record, but more recently, over the past several years, he has a fantastic record. And he's with AOC on the Green New Deal. It was him and AOC that led that charge. Markey fights for Medicare for all, fights for other big progressive policies. Let me show you a recent video here of what Markey has been fighting for during the pandemic.
The idea that Senator Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders and I have is that while we sent a one-time $1,200 check to everyone in America, it's not enough. This is going to go on for some period of time. So our idea is that on a recurring basis, on a monthly basis, that everyone gets a $2,000 check from the federal government. So a husband and wife would receive $4,000. For children, they would get more. And it would help them to pay their bills, their mortgage, their rent, for the food, for the prescriptions, for the car payments, whatever. Some people say we can't afford to do it, that the reality is we can't afford not to do it. And that reality is going to become much more evident as each week goes by, as each month goes by, as we get closer to 1930s Depression era economic conditions. And that it's going to be clear that we have to keep funneling additional help into the hands of workers and families. And that's the only way we're going to be able to save our economy from completely collapsing. And I think that's going to become more evident to Republicans as each week and month go by.
So Ed Markey, one of the senators fighting for $2,000 a month during this pandemic. Think about how much that would have helped you. Imagine Democrats actually fought for that. Imagine Nancy Pelosi actually fought for that. And you have someone trying to primary this guy? Are you kidding me? Joe Kennedy is not good, to put it lightly. He's not good. And in fact, up until just very recently, Joe Kennedy was against the legalization, even the decriminalization of marijuana. So this is a race, unfortunately, because of the Kennedy name, he actually has a shot at potentially taking out Ed Markey, at potentially fooling enough voters into thinking, oh, another Kennedy, fantastic, because of people's obsession with royalty, essentially. You have to actually look at who these people are, what they have fought for. Have they stood up for you? Are they fighting for you now? Have they done it in the past? Or are they just doing it now rhetorically to pretend they actually care? Because that's what Kennedy's doing. Ed Markey is actually and has actually been fighting for people. So if you are in this state, pay attention to this race. Make sure you vote to keep your senator. Because if he's replaced by Kennedy, that's one less vote for something like $2,000 a month. One less vote for Medicare for all. One less vote for real help for the poor and the middle class.